Good evening, Rajiv, and good evening, Ramya. Thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday evening. And the topic that we have for today's presentation is alignment of strengths towards positive outcomes. So with this topic, let's see how we can make our Sunday evening fruitful for all of us who are present here today. So with today's session, we will be discovering how can strengths be related to one's well-being, or how are they related to one's well-being rather, and how can one align strengths towards creating possibilities, and also how can creativity and innovation be leveraged by organizations. So starting with how can strengths be related to one's well-being. Well, let me start with a little background. While I was doing research about this topic, I discovered that positive psychology, which is related to strengths and which is also to do with learned optimism, appreciative inquiry, and a couple of other subtopics, happens to have its roots in a couple of years down, in history. So starting from the time of World War II, where clinical psychology was given importance, and positive psychology in a way was very much a part of how people, when they were coming out of post-World War trauma, how they were helped through clinical psychology and to some extent positive psychology in having resilience and in overcoming those challenges which were there at that point of time. Now, positive psychology, which is related to strengths, was something that came into a lot of limelight in the late 90s with Martin Seligman's research and his study that all of us have been referring to and reading up on. So with a little background that I shared with you, I want to also share that positive outcomes related to positive psychology are more to do with individual strengths. Now, talking about the definition of positive psychology. Positive psychology is a scientific study of human strengths and virtues. And according to Martin Seligman, who is seen as the founding father of positive psychology movement can be described as the study of what constitutes the pleasant life, the engaged life, and the meaningful life. And as I said, research into positive psychology focuses more on scientific explanations of positive thoughts and actions. Some of us are familiar with the PERMA model, and it talks about positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, accomplishments, and achievements. So this model is a very holistic model which speaks about a very holistic way of being, and also in the organization bringing about positive outcomes by tapping into the strengths of individuals and not really looking at problem or not being problem focused, rather being solution focused, seeing what is working. And, in a situation where there is something that needs a solution, starting on a note by saying what is working here, and then taking it forward from there. So keeping PERMA model as the base of my research that I am going forward with this topic, I had been working on my own model of coaching for a couple of months, rather 2 years now. And my framework is STEER framework. With the knowledge that I have acquired through positive psychology and a couple of other related topics, I worked further on this model, and this is what it looks like now. Now, my entire research on this topic brought me to this point of my own being, where I felt that for me, Eastern as well as Western schools of thoughts, Eastern as well as Western philosophy, Eastern as well as Western research, and a lot of other things related to this, including religion to some extent, spirituality, philosophy. I tried to keep both in mind while creating this framework. So while some of the frameworks that we have been seeing are, which come from the Western world, there are a lot of, there's a lot of wisdom in our Eastern, studies and texts, which if we tap going forward, there's a lot that we can bring as positive outcome for our own being. So with that, I would like to share with you, these 8 prongs of STEER framework that I have here. So I call this STEER framework, or steer through success towards significance, which means that success is important. Being financially sound is very important for businesses to have profits, and go higher up is very important. But at the same time, once you're successful, it is also important to look at being significant, look at being more meaningful. And that is what this framework is trying to encapsulate overall. So starting with spirituality and science on left-hand side, and strengths and power of the subconscious mind on the right, and a couple of others, including emotional intelligence, effectiveness and consistent efforts, tuning into your higher self, trust and authenticity, resilience and courage, relationships and interconnectedness. So I could stop here, and it will be nice if, all of you could reflect a little on this and share your thoughts on how you are seeing this framework. It would help me in my work that I undertake further on this.
So, Rritu, I feel that this is amazing. I mean, you have covered a lot of things here, which is really great. And like you said, there is a lot of knowledge in our Eastern side of books that we have. I think most of it is covered in books like Bhagavad Gita or any of our Vedas. So for me personally, when I reflect on this, it reminds me of teachings from Bhagavad Gita, from Lord Krishna. So that's one thing that that resonates with me in terms of spirituality, trust, tuning into higher self is a very broad thing. A lot of details into it, which probably a normal human being takes an entire lifetime to get there, you know. So that's my reflection, and the relationships interconnectedness is says it all, um, right? It says it all. So I really liked it, and reflecting on this, I feel it is I could think back of the teachings from Bhagavad Gita is what I'm trying to say.
Thank
So
you.
that's
So I'd like to add here that looking at the framework, just like when we look at any other model or framework, it is, one could start in a way by looking at where we are, at a given point of time. So I agree that this is a very broad framework. And for me also, each time I reflect on this, I may be in a different frame of mind or in a different state of being, and may want to work on one area at a time, perhaps, and sometimes may want to balance some of these, knowing that, for overall well-being, for a person that I am, um, I would look at having a balance in all of them at this stage of my life. So if I am to take this to any of my engagements or conversations with anybody, I would give them the freedom to reflect on this and start from where they are. If they feel that they are at a state where they need to work more on their competencies and look at their financial angle at that point of time, and look at securing their basic needs, then perhaps they could start at that point. So this will be broken down into subheadings, each one of them, which I'm working on today. I did not bring them here because it's very elaborate list under each. And I'm also looking at preparing a questionnaire and getting feedback and going through it in a proper manner, as far as having this out there is concerned for others to use. So this is what I wanted to share. Rajiv, would you like to also share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so this is a very, very comprehensive. I resonate also with both your thoughts, and also what Ramya said. There's a lot of blessings of spirituality in the way you put this. Like, for example, the tuning into the higher self. You even used the word of spirituality, and interestingly used it with science. So, I mean, faith with logic, maybe that's what. So it's extremely, it's very comprehensive. And maybe like you just said, it's probably each point of it or each tab of it can be fairly elaborate, as you are mentioning, and you've applied a lot of thought to it. So that's very nice. It's something also, it's something original. And compliments to you on that, because it takes time to come up with something. It's not easy to come up with anything original. So it's just bringing this together like this and making sure that each dimension is available for you and your clients to explore, or you and your coaches to explore. That's my one thought. The second thought of the question I have is, so is this a framework to use as a coach, Rritu, in your engagements, or as a consultant or counselor guide in your engagement? Or is this or is this something more bigger? I'm trying to understand that.
Sure. So, Raji, we have several models, several coaching models that we use in our coaching engagements already. Some of them, I mean, starting with, say, positive psychology, and there are a lot of other models, the wheel of life. Um, what else do we use? Yes, there are a lot of models out there.
Yeah, grow and all of that.
Yes, yes, grow and PERMA model. Appreciative inquiry has another, framework to be used. So one, as a coach, one pulls out different models in different situations, and one generally starts with the wheel of life. Yes, currently I would like to continue engaging the way I am engaging, my clients. However, this is something that I will be first testing and then taking it forward. Having said that, when I, dive deeper into this, there are a lot of things that unfold. And for somebody who would be interested to know more about this, it would be nice to explore this rather than asking somebody to, who's not prepared to explore it to that much depth to go in for it. Because the other models are not so comprehensive. They pick up on each subsystem or a sub aspect of what one is looking at achieving, and it becomes easier to use those. So that is what I would like to say, that yes, going forward at some point of time, I will start using it.
Please continue.
Sure. So just wanted to share with you that when I talk about science and spirituality here, the science aspect, of course, is very important in any context, especially in today's context where we in the East need to do more research like the West. While we may be good at our spirituality angle, but when it comes to the research of what we need to get into, I think that's where we need to work and try and learn from the West. And on the right-hand side, where I talk about the subconscious mind, there again, science like quantum physics comes in, which is something that is related to coaching. And in coaching, we use a lot of, as I said, creating of positive experiences or getting strength from the past positive experiences. So that's where the power of subconscious mind and breaking our patterns and creating new neural pathways is concerned. So that's where quantum physics and the subconscious mind comes in and becomes an important part of this model. Emotional intelligence is my favorite part in this because it covers almost everything. It covers interpersonal skills, it covers intrapersonal skills, it covers transactional analysis, and it covers a lot more than what one can imagine. It's not just empathy, there's so much more to it. So yes, that's what emotional intelligence for me is. And effectiveness and consistent efforts would involve everything to do with one's day-to-day, being up and about and going through the day, being effective in what we do and being consistent in those efforts. Again, this has a lot to cover. The goal setting and all of that comes under this. Tuning into higher self is something that we as coaches are already, doing with getting into the being of our existence. And we are all at different levels, and for a better understanding of how we can bring about positive outcomes for our clients, I think staying continuously tuned in to this will be something that at least I would be continuously engaging in. And again, there are many layers to this. And resilience and courage, being agile, having the vulnerability, having the courageous conversations, building psychological safety in the organizations. All of that will fall under this. And this is where, the times like this, the pandemic or the post-pandemic times like this, one can tap into the resilience quotient of individuals and see, in terms of their well-being, where they are and where they would like to be. So tapping into basically their mental, physical, and their agility to withhold these challenges is what comes in here. Relationship and interconnectedness in the context of smaller setups, having meaningful relationships with your inner circle, with your family, which comes from our Eastern way of being. And of course, interconnectedness and believing in the power of universe, and having faith that by doing collective good, there is something even better that can be achieved. So all this encapsulate beautifully into a state of being creative, where I missed out on talking about strengths, where you know what your strengths are, you work on them, and you also know your creativity or what motivates you, those levels. And by constantly doing what you can in the given circumstances and taking your life forward with a little bit of balance in these different spheres of life, flow can be achieved. And once flow is achieved is when one thrives. So I would like to talk about my personal example here, where all along I have been blessed to, not really I wasn't the bread earner in my family ever. I had the opportunity of going out and working. However, circumstances did not really permit me. And I had a very unconventional way of, having a professional life, which was more to do with teaching in schools or picking up some corporate engagements, which was very rare in my case. Whenever I got an opportunity, being in a transferable setup, we were moving from one station to the other every 2 years. So all along, I had the privilege of not really being pushed to go out there and get that extra income in the family. However, I would also say that I had the contentment. I was satisfied with what I had, and I wanted to focus more on my family and more on whatever that came my way as an opportunity, whether it was some benevolent service or it was the job that I could pick up for a short period of time. So now at this stage of my life, when I connect the dots from my past into my present, there's a lot that I bring to the table, is what I realize, as compared to having been in a very conventional setup all along, had that been my situation. So now at this stage of my life, I still strive to be in flow of things. I still strive to have balance in life. On one hand, I'm doing what I can as a human being, trying to, not stagnate, add value to my own being and also add value to others. And on the other hand, I'm trying to find the balance. So again, from Eastern philosophy, balance and harmony becomes a very integral part of our lives. So with this model, I try to take this forward, and now post-pandemic times, even the West is realizing that this is very important. Having harmony and balance is very important. So that is where I am with this movie. Going further into today's conversation. Well, since the session is more about strengths, so there are a lot of tests that, or assessments that one can take or make our clients take these assessments for them to discover their strengths. And while we do that, it is important for us, or to, for that matter, to make our clients understand how unique they are, and help them discover what comes to them naturally. Ask them such questions as what are you most proud of in your life, and why? What jobs or activities bring vitality to you? What do you appreciate about yourself? When someone praises you, what do you get complimented on the most? When you are challenged, what do you call upon within yourself to help you succeed? So, other than discovering those strengths in ourselves, say those top 5 strengths, or top 3 values through these assessments, I think most important thing for us is to understand that we as human beings have the power of choice. And we are where we are today is because of the choices we made. And going forward also with this awareness that, there will be options to choose from on every decision in our life. And the decision that we make will take us further into unfolding of unknown chapters of our life. I think this is very powerful to know that we have that strength. This is our biggest strength, to be able to choose. So when our clients realize this and make those choices, being more informed about knowing themselves better, I think it helps them. It helps them in finding things that are more meaningful to them in life. Now, as leaders, as coaches, or in organizations, as managers at all levels, it is very important for us to demonstrate vulnerability, courage, and creativity ourselves. By being in that space where we are not hesitant in sharing, things that we don't follow, or the things that are beyond our expertise. So admitting what we don't know and taking accountability of what we can do, accepting imperfections in ourselves and in the projects or things going forward. Finding someone we trust to be able to share what we need to share. Having these coaching conversations in organizations can be a great step forward. Training leaders, managers to be coaches, and internally having these coaching conversations or letting them problem solve things. They may start on a note of, again, problem solving is not the right word for today's topic, because we are not starting with problem, but we are focusing on what works and taking it forward. So same way in organizations, when there is chaos and when things are not working fine. So instead of looking at problem, having a more meaningful, more mature, more adult conversation, being in the adult phase of transactional mode, these coaching conversations is what can be, the way going forward for some of the organizations who've not taken up coaching or who don't have coaching engagements, whether it's internal or external coaches in their organization can help. And of course, being authentic and not hesitating in asking for help when needed. Now, looking at this, what is it that comes to your mind, this image? It's all about, yes, Rajiv.
The glass is certainly more than half full.
Wonderful.
If you are holding it, it's certainly almost full.
Thank you, Rajiv. So that is the way, one should be looking at things. When it comes to, I think, others also, like this is what you're saying to me. So it takes courage to say this to someone. And it's very important to be able to find strengths in others. So being flexible in our communication and approaches, and to be able to adapt and leverage the strengths of people who might have opposite views and styles. So as coaches, we can, it's not difficult for us to understand others' perspectives. It's not difficult for us to say that I completely drop my way of thinking at this point, and I'm open to listening to what you have to say, and let's see what comes out of it. And having the capacity to stretch one's personal perspective, because we may have a narrow vision based on our conditioning, based on the patterns that we have been following, or the mental models that have been there with us. So it's important to stretch our own personal perspective. And operating at whole system level, at a systemic level, bringing together and unifying concepts and ways of working. Design thinking is one concept which was used primarily only in products. However, now it is being used in organizations for a lot of solutions. Also, cultural attributes, organizational culture, behavioral aspects, and alignment and organizational impact. So at all these levels, one can look at broadening the perspective, our own perspective, and looking at things holistically. And developing a mindset and ability to catch people doing extraordinary things in ordinary times is how we help them understand their strengths. So as coaches, as leaders, if we can, see the positives in them and help them understand, or put the spotlight on their strengths, I think it can help them. It can enable people to name, and also we can enable them to name and nurture these strengths. Also identifying assets and passions and mobilizing them. So it's not just about knowing one's strengths, but it's also about taking action, taking accountability, being consistent. And if we were to have this kind of if we were to follow something like this at school level or in businesses and communities, we can very well imagine how things would transform, and how a lot of us would not really be trapped or feel trapped. Instead, one could feel that there is something that we bring to the table, and that's what we need to work on, along with, of course, working on other things, but working on strengths and taking that forward would really bring about a lot of transformation in society. So coaches and leaders will have to move into the coach spectrum of drama triangle. Instead of being into the victim persecutor mode, one has to come towards the other side of the drama triangle, where one has the coaching conversations and not just the transactional conversations. And working towards being in the consciousness spectrum is what we strive for. Open to feedback and criticism. That's how we broaden our perspective, and having courageous, creative, curious conversations, being accountable, taking actions, being agile, and being consistent. Empathy and the ability to learn from failure is again a very important, I think, aspect of one's being. And as coaches, if we have the end goal in mind during our conversations, we possibly are not enabling creativity. We are possibly not enabling possibilities and ideation and creative thinking for our clients. So how can creativity and innovation be leveraged by organizations? I think all of us have gone through these topics, which is learning organizations, the 5th discipline principles, learned optimism, appreciative inquiry. So most of them are focusing on working on strengths. So coming to learning organizations, and this quote by Peter Senge, which says that the rate at which organizations learn may become the only sustainable source of competitive advantage. So he talks about how organizations have to have a culture of innovation and basically open to developing the talent and focusing on personal development, creativity, and collective work where they work towards collective vision. And the 5th discipline principle, yes, it talks about a shared vision, mental models, coming out of those mental models, team learning, personal mastery, and systems thinking. Now, design thinking, as I mentioned earlier, it was used in products and product development and product designs, but now it is being used in a lot of scenarios, and it's becoming an integral part of education system in our country. And even I think IIM is taking it to a level where it's become an important topic for students to study. Now, most businesses realize that the key to growth and survival in today's world is in creating a culture of innovation across an organization. Businesses are adopting design technology methodology to bring together multidisciplinary teams to approach problem fighting and problem solving creatively. So design thinking toolkit includes user-centric insights, wherein they see that the customers as to what exactly is the requirement in the current scenario. An example that I can give you here is that in 1990s, Walkman was discovered because while walking, people wanted to listen to music, and that's how it was innovated, and it was extensively used, though of course it's become redundant now with new technologies coming in. So likewise, in current scenario, a lot of new things came up. How in pandemic, suddenly everything became digital, and there was a lot of innovation with supply chain management, where things, the way they are being delivered now, it's changed the entire way of how we were doing things earlier. So ability to include user feedback to frame the need better, which is very important, with empathy, understanding what the customer has to give as feedback, and creative ideation. Diverse teams are brought together. Rapid prototyping, it doesn't really take very long through design thinking to launch a product or a service. However, there can be a very rapid prototyping, and continually iterating the solutions with the user to arrive at higher solutions faster. Most businesses realize that the key to growth and survival in today's world is in creating a culture of innovation across an organization. With this, I'd like to say this with a lot of pleasure that isn't it great that rabbits run and birds fly, and it's not the other way? What if we made birds run and rabbits fly? How difficult it would be for them to perform. So likewise, how important it is for us to find individual strengths and leverage those strengths accordingly. There is an advertisement that I saw on YouTube, which popped up yesterday, which is Quality Walls ice cream, where father tells the son that if you get 95%, you get chocolate ice cream. If you get 75%, you get black forest ice cream. If you get 60%, you get black currant ice cream. And if you just manage to pass, you still get, one of his favorite ice creams is what he mentioned. I may not really know the sequence of ice creams exactly the way it is in the advertisement, but why I'm sharing this here is that it's so beautiful not to pressurize or push, individuals, knowing that wherever they are, for them to perform at their best, they may be using their strengths to give their best in a certain setup. However, certain areas may be beyond their control. So really pushing someone very hard to be good in everything, though I don't say that one should not develop, other areas. However, one should be understanding and, have the flexibility of giving them their space and time to discover things for themselves. So wouldn't it be great if businesses build teams based on their strengths and bring out the best in people? And wouldn't it be great if we could enable people to shine the spotlight on their strengths? With this, we come to the end of this presentation. We can have you ask any questions, or we could discuss if you have time. We still have 10 more minutes to go.
So amazing presentation, Rritu. Just want to congratulate you on that. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I don't have any questions as such, but do want to just bring out a point that as coaches, as leaders in organizations, it's not only about bringing out the strengths of individuals that leaders struggle with, it's also identifying those strengths in the first place. If a leader is first able to identify what the strengths of the team as a whole in terms of systems thinking and the strength of individuals within the team towards a common goal is, that is one of the biggest challenges that I currently see in my experience within organizations. So that's something that leaders probably need to start thinking, how to recognize, how to identify. We do have tools, but I don't think all the leaders are equipped with tools to kind of bring out those kind of strengths or identify those strengths in a team size of 30, 40, or even 10, 20 or smaller teams. And once we do that, and then we can align them towards a common goal and bring out the best in their strengths. The exact flow that you have mentioned, that's really amazing. I really want to I really admire that. One other thing that I would like to add is the steer model that you showed. When you said that you like balance, I kind of visualized that in the image that you showed. You know, a circle with the creativity and on both sides equal number of things. Identified. So that's really amazing. And I'm really interested and curious to know, once you drill it down and break things down into modular features, if you can just share it with us, that will be really great. Would be interested to see that.
Absolutely, I will, Ramya. Thank you.
Thank you, Rritu. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, Rajiv.
Very thoughtful presentation, Rritu. As always, I know you a little bit, and I know that every time you take up something, you apply a lot of yourself to it, a lot of your thought to it, and it comes out. So, but this must have taken a lot of thinking, deep thinking on your part to bring it together in this way. So that's thankful. We're very thankful. I think your thoughts are very, very comprehensive, very wide. They can be applied to any situation, to any aspect of life, any age group. So I think so. It's very comprehensive that way. You always stand for positive psychology, for strengths. Your enterprise's name, Shakhsiyat, also represents that. Seeing the positive, seeing the strengths, finding the strengths, helping your clients and colleagues see the strengths, so discover the strengths. So that's coming out very, very, very strongly from your things. And I think that itself, I was just reflecting in my mind that there are probably two situations where, and the classification is very simplistic, but to keep that in mind, there's probably two situations where someone goes to someone else, a coach, a counselor, a friend, or a guide, mentor, whatever. One could be a positive situation where one is already, full of, let's just say, acknowledgement, success, achievement in whichever sphere. But now one is plateaued. And so there's less of a struggle, but there is a plateau. Or one wants to now cross over. That's one type of situation. The other is that one is putting in efforts or trying, but one is not getting the reward dopamine, whether one is not getting acknowledgement or success. Something is happening that it's not. And that struggle therefore starts to increase. And then maybe that is a spiral that is creating drain and lack of confidence, or and slowly people in that situation then tend to lose the confidence in their own strengths, right? It's like a creative child, but as he or she is growing up,
Right.
he or she starts getting reprimands around what he or she is not good at. And therefore he starts to forget what she or he is good at, right? He stops to draw, stops to be in the moment, and starts to keep thinking, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at this, blah, blah, blah. And in that situation, just the pursuit of, or just helping the other person getting in touch with their own strengths is, I would say, a huge step to, reverse the flow from drain to energizing again. Yeah. And then, of course, action and right action, etc. So, your work on strengths and your sort of depth around that, I think, is very helpful in this category. And I think your framework's probably very helpful in the first category because it's a very comprehensive framework. Maybe the people who are already successful want now some more purpose or whatever their situation is, each one to his own. So, yeah, that's my thought. I'll probably stay with that. I just feel that there was another thought that was resonating, so I just put it out there, which is I feel it's a struggle for all organization and all leaders to be able to just do everything around the strengths of their team members. It's just very difficult because of just teams can be large, organizations can be large. So trying to, always keep pursuing the developmental angle on figuring out what the strengths are and therefore making sure that aligns. I think the responsibility is probably more and should be more on the individual. Of navigating their path and therefore maybe finding other paths if this path is not the path that is, if every day I'm realizing this is not the path I should walk, then I guess the responsibility is on my shoulders, should be on my shoulders. While I can, due to reasons, I may have to continue to walk that path for some time. As you said, there are needs, there are constraints, but eventually the responsibility will be on the individual's shoulder to figure out how to either achieve alignment in that path or to figure out another path. I think instead of the organization always trying to help the people, because the organization at the end has a frame of what their objective is. It's not, it is, so within that frame, they will certainly, if they find the discovery of the strengths aligns with their objective, they will certainly do that in their own way. How good or bad that is, time tells, but.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, Rajiv. And that's why I have taken this topic in a very broad perspective. So strengths as in not just the strengths that we discover through assessments, but knowing that, we are human beings and that itself is a strength. Knowing that we have a family to support and that itself is a strength. And, having the gratitude, counting one's blessings, all those are our strengths. Being able to breathe is our strength. It's how we start looking at it, how we start seeing that the glass is half full, how we start counting those blessings, and then starting to rebuild from there, because this life is too beautiful to be wasted even a single day, wherever we may be. And like you said, in the organizations, it's very difficult. I completely agree with you. And whatever little that I've seen of the corporate world, I understand this completely. However, there are, talent management systems in the organizations, and also how the induction takes place, how the screening takes place. And some organizations, I think in the West, I'm told, have been doing this. They have been, aligning the strengths of individuals to their roles. Having said that, I completely understand that it is not practically possible. But that's where one has to help them build the other strengths, the holistic understanding of strengths, because that's more important. We from the Eastern world understand that.
True.
So thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your efforts in this for all of us.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rritu.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.